It almost never made it to the big screen. Can you imagine a world without the Green Mile? One of the most emotional movies ever made almost didn't happen. Studios thought it was too long, too dark, and too strange. But what if I told you that the biggest shock isn't just behind the scenes? It's in what you miss entirely while watching it. We're talking hidden symbolism, insane set secrets, powerful backstories, and moments that would have changed everything. And yes, we're diving into the Green Mile cast's latest news, and the parts of the story they swore you'd never notice. From Tom Hanks pulling emotional weight behind the camera, to Michael Clarke Duncan almost walking away from the role that changed his life, there's a reason this film hit so hard. And wait until you hear what almost got cut out entirely. Once you know these details, you'll never look at the movie the same way again. Ready to have your mind blown? Let's rewind the clock a bit and talk about how the Green Mile even happened. Because this movie had everything going against it after The Shawshank Redemption didn't do so hot in theaters. Even though it later became a classic, no one wanted to greenlight another prison movie based on Stephen King. Frank Darabont, who directed both, was told not to take the risk. And studios definitely didn't want another 3-hour emotional roller coaster about death row and supernatural miracles. But Tom Hanks had just crushed it in Forrest Gump and Saving Private Ryan, so his name had major pull. When he joined the project, studios finally started listening. Still, they wanted to cut the movie way down. Darabont refused. He knew every scene mattered, so he pushed back, even if it meant risking everything. That stubbornness gave us the full version we all remember. And what a gift that turned out to be. The attention to detail didn't stop there. They built the entire prison set from scratch. Unlike Shawshank, which used a real prison, the Green Mile needed a very specific vibe. Everything from a green linoleum floor to the lighting was historically accurate. The mile was designed to get darker and more menacing the farther you walked, symbolizing the approach toward death. The cast said it felt like being in another world. Even the electric chair, nicknamed Old Sparky, was functional. Smoke effects, lighting, everything. It freaked out the actors in real time. David Moore said walking down that hallway put you in a different headspace. And that's before filming even started. Darabont made the cast spend an entire afternoon on set in complete silence, just existing in their characters' roles. No talking, no direction, just standing there, prisoners in their cells, guards at their posts, feeling the weight of what that life was like. That prep work made the performances hit harder than anyone expected. Now let's break down the stuff even die-hard fans missed. First up, every actor created deep backstories for their roles, way beyond the script. Tom Hanks saw Paul Edgecombe as a war veteran from World War I. That explained why he was so patient, so haunted, and so disgusted by cruelty. Michael Clarke Duncan took a completely different path. He visited hospitals, studied people who needed help, and brought that vulnerable energy to John Coffey. Notice how his body language stays childlike in his cell, but transforms when he's healing? That was deliberate. The man had presence and softness at the same time. And then there's Doug Hutchison, who played Percy. He admitted he modeled Percy after a real childhood bully. That personal connection made Percy's cruelty feel real, not cartoonish. It made our skin crawl, and that wasn't by accident. But the wildest part? Most fans never caught the real themes right in front of their faces. Color is huge in this film. Green isn't just on the floor. It shows up every time death is nearby. The curtains, the sponge, even reflections in the inmates' eyes. You might not notice it consciously, but it shapes the mood. The healing scenes, too, go beyond curing infections or tumors. They're spiritual. When Coffey heals Melinda, she talks like a child again. Her innocence returns. It's about saving souls, not just bodies. And if you thought Coffey was just some gentle giant, think again. His story mirrors Jesus. That line, "I'm tired, boss, lonely as a sparrow in the rain," it echoes Psalm 102. And when the guards remove his chains before his execution, it's visually identical to Jesus being taken down from the cross. That's no accident. And what about Mr. Jingles, the little mouse? People love him, but few realize he's not just there for laughs. He's a moral test. The way characters treat the mouse shows their true selves. Percy tries to kill him just because he can. Dell shows him kindness. Paul decides to protect him, even though he doesn't have to. That small choice sets the tone for the bigger one later, when Paul chooses to help John Coffey. It's genius. And that final twist? Mr. Jingles lives way longer than any mouse should. Just like Paul, he carries the weight of Coffee's gift, both a blessing and a burden. Then there's the weather. Bet you didn't catch this. Every weather shift in the movie reflects what's happening emotionally. Dell's botched execution, thunderstorms. Coffee's confession, stillness. His execution, a clear moonlit night, peaceful, serene. And when Paul finally visits Coffee's grave at the end, it's the first truly sunny day. That's not just pretty lighting. It's emotional storytelling through nature. And what about Coffee's last request? Don't put the hood on me, boss. I'm afraid of the dark. That one line destroyed audiences. But it wasn't just for drama. It came straight from the original novel. It showed that even with supernatural powers, Coffee was still human, scared, alone, and desperate for compassion. That's why Paul honors the request. It's not breaking protocol. It's mercy. Now let's talk about the Percy and Wild Bill dynamic. They represent two types of evil. One wears a badge, the other just causes chaos. But when Wild Bill grabs Percy and whispers in his ear, something shifts. That moment haunts Percy. Later, he freezes up during Dell's execution. And in the end, Percy gets what he deserves. Locked in a mental institution, broken by the very cruelty he dished out. Wild Bill's evil broke him. That narrative arc almost got erased. Studios wanted Percy's role reduced. They said it distracted from the main story. But Darabont fought to keep it. Without Percy's bureaucratic evil, the story loses its punch. We need to see how systems protect monsters like him while destroying people like Coffee. The real miracle? It's not Coffee's powers. It's what he sparks in others. These guards go from passive rule followers to men who are willing to risk everything to do the right thing. Coffee doesn't just heal people. He awakens their conscience. And for the first time in his life, he experiences kindness. That's his miracle. That even one person saw him as human. That changes everything. And now, let's talk about that ending. Because it was almost gone. Can you believe the scenes with old Paul weren't supposed to be in the final cut? Executives said the movie was too long. They wanted it to end right after the execution. No epilogue. No final moment of reflection. Just credits. But Darabont insisted on keeping it. Those scenes were actually filmed first, and they shaped the entire movie. Without them, we don't see what Coffee's gift really meant. We don't see Paul haunted by his choice for the rest of his life. We don't see the cost of doing the right thing. That final walk in the cemetery, under the sun, is where the story lands. It's not about death. It's about what we carry after. There were even more scenes that didn't make it. One was supposed to show Paul's first day on the job. Young, optimistic, clueless about what death row really meant. That would have made his transformation even more powerful. Another was a scene with his wife, Jan, showing how deeply his work affected their marriage. That tension is there in the final cut, but these scenes would have filled in the emotional blanks. And can we just take a second for Michael Clarke Duncan's journey? This man was working as a bodyguard and digging ditches before he got this role. He wasn't even going to audition. His manager had to push him. He thought he wasn't a real actor. But once he read that line about being tired of people being ugly to each other, the room fell silent. That's when they knew he was John Coffey. He studied sick patients, observed kids, and transformed his energy. He went from muscle-bound bouncer to one of the most emotionally moving performers ever. He got nominated for an Oscar. Y'all, that's insane. And Tom Hanks? He mentored Duncan through every scene. That cast wasn't just acting. They were supporting each other through something huge. That's why the Green Mile cast's latest news still resonates all these years later. There's so much in this film that we didn't catch the first time around. And you know what? The Green Mile cast scandal update is all about what was hidden in plain sight. It's not a scandal in the typical Hollywood sense. It's a scandal of silence. That we almost lost those final scenes. That we nearly never got this film at all. That some executives tried to water it down, cut out the emotional weight, and turn it into just another drama. But every cast member, every crew member fought for its soul. This wasn't just another paycheck job for them. It was a legacy. Think about the prison set. It wasn't real, but it felt more real than most locations ever do. That set was alive. It wasn't just walls and lights. It was tension, emotion, history. The characters weren't just acting. They were living inside those walls. And that little mouse broke us. He told us who was kind and who wasn't, who had compassion and who was empty inside. That's why Mr. Jingle still matters, even decades later. And let's not ignore how Percy's fall was necessary. It showed us that sometimes evil people get protected for a while, but eventually that same system can turn on them, too. That's the balance the film needed. Without it, Coffey's death feels pointless. With it, his sacrifice becomes a spark for something bigger. And the guards? They weren't heroes at the start. They became heroes by the end. That's the true miracle. Watching men grow a conscience. Watching them shift from just doing my job to, I can't be part of this anymore. That's what makes this story unforgettable. And yes, it's tragic, but it's also honest. Did you notice the green theme when you first watched it? What about the weather shifts? Or how every character's fate was tied to that little mouse? Let's talk about it in the comments. What hit you the hardest? Was it Coffey's final words? The epilogue? Percy's breakdown? Because honestly, the Green Mile cast scandal update reminds us how close we came to losing all of it. So go watch it again. Pay attention to the green. Notice who pets Mr. Jingles. Watch how the sky changes. And let the film hit you in the chest all over again. And while you're here, hit that like button and subscribe for more deep dives like this one. Comment your favorite hidden moment from the movie and tell us, do you think Paul did the right thing in the end? We want to hear your take. Because after all, we each owe a death. No exceptions. But some stories, they deserve to be remembered forever.